Well, today we're gonna have some fun in the bed of the C10 project. Now, we put the roadster shop chassis underneath this truck, but we put a much wider tire in the rear. And the original tubs, this blue one that you see here, won't fit over this large tire. So when I cut the bed out to put it on the truck, of course we took the tubs out and I cut over the wood and opened it up so it would clearance that. Now what I've got to do is widen the tubs. So I've got to make a couple measurements and know where we've got to be. I know that from here to there we are at 12.5 inches. And the outside for the wood cut is 12.5. I'll make a couple notes and then we'll go over to the table and start cutting things up. Now the original tubs from that spot are 11.1/8 inches stock. And then the outside of that edge we will need to be 13.75. Stock width is 12.25. So when the tub is on, I want it just shy of the stainless strip. And filling that gap. Let's go over to the table and start making these fit. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the stampings and take a look at this stamping. And you see all the wrinkles that are in this corner? That's pretty rough. And when I'm done, I want to clean up as much of that as I can. So I'm gonna find the two tubs with the best outer corners first. This one looks really nice. Way better than that one, so I already know that I'm gonna use the inside. I'll use this outside. But first I've got to mark the two outside ones. And I'm ready to cut them out. The way I'm going to cut those, so I've got the cut-off saw with cut-off wheels from 3M, and I'm going to cut right on that line, and when I'm done I'll go ahead and grind it and make sure that I'm exactly on that line, because basically by using that height gauge and scribing that, it's like putting a water line. I know that line is dead flat just like the table, so I know that on the other piece when I get them done they should fit together perfectly. Go ahead and pull this tape off, grind that to a nice line. Now when I cut this with a cutoff wheel, I cut it really close to the line, but you can see there's about a 1/16 of an inch of sheet metal there that I'm grinding to the line because I don't want to go past it, so I'll leave a little bit there so it's proud and I can grind it right to the line, and then I'll line these two pieces up. Then I'll strip that area and I'll start tacking it together. You can see how those line up now. Just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and tape these together. get that all the way in. It's just going to leave a little bit of that wood showing, which is exactly what I want. Cool. All right. We start putting that together. I'm going to go ahead and cut the other two. So when you come back, these will already be cut, and I'll have caught them up to that one. So I've cut both tubs and they should fit together real nice. But before I can start welding this, I've got to get the paint off. I've already done this one. I'm going to strip this side too. And we'll get ready to weld these. Now I'm just using a 3M Roll-Lock, which is a Scotch-Brite. It just takes that primer right off. Once I get it all the way around, I'll remove all the clamps, and then I'll hammer and dolly the metal, make sure everything's lined up real nice, and I'll put a few more tacks, and then I'll start to weld it complete. Now I'm just going to grind the bump off of each of those welds. Then I'm going to hammer and dolly that and make sure it's all lined up real nice and straight, and then I can weld it complete. All right, so I've got the first tub all tacked together. I'm ready to just go over all of this, make sure all this metal surface is the same level. I'll grind that, and then I'll start to weld it all complete. We'll get this one ready to go to the paint shop before we put it in the truck. There's an aftermarket tub that they make already, but it's, I believe, 3.5 or 4 inches wider, and it really looks like it's been cut up and you've got these big tubs in there. I didn't want it to look like it'd been altered. We only added 1 3/4 or 1 3/8. It still looks factory. It's going to be very nice. All right, got everything lined up. Now I'm ready to weld this solid, and then we'll grind it and clean it up and get it ready for paint. The goal to get the metalwork to finish like this is to keep that surface, both surfaces, at the same level. That's why I'll tack it, and then come in and hammer and dolly it. Sometimes I'll grind the high spots of the weld off so that I can hammer and dolly it, and the dolly's not sitting up on a weld. I'll keep it flat, work it all together, and then do the final weld once I've got all those tacks about a 1/2 inch apart. Just weld the whole thing solid. And then one of the big mistakes that a guy will do is, you know, when you're welding it, it'll warp a little bit. And that warpage is just by heating and cooling, the metal is warping a little bit. Don't worry about it. Just weld it all the way. If it starts to get too far out of control, hammer and dolly it as you go. But weld it all the way. And then one of the mistakes that a lot of guys will make is when it starts going away, they start hammering where it's moved outside. Just hammer on the weld itself. Put a dolly behind it and hammer it back straight. That's where things have they've shrunk or they've stretched. Most of the time it's shrinking because you are welding it. It shrinks as it cools. So you just hammer that weld and stretch it back out where it needs to be, grind it, and you'll end up with a surface like this. One of the things I had to do, because this is a reproduction inner fender, is I actually hammered that lip back in a little bit. As I was putting it in earlier, I noticed that it wasn't going all the way in, and that was because that surface was not quite at a full 90. So I've tapped that in a little bit. I'll probably have to go a little more. Yeah, so you just have the wood showing right next to that strip. When I get that all pulled in and bolted tight to the bed, that'll pull over right where I want it. All right, I got another one to do, and good luck on yours.